Welcome, a very, very warm welcome to all of you on this very important night for football. If you're an English fan and want to leave early at the end, I shall be ready to run at past, so when it finishes. But thank you anyway for joining us this evening, and whether you're trust members, CUH trust members, or members of the public who've joined us tonight, a very warm welcome to all of you. If this is your first time, I think you've chosen an exceptionally wonderful presentation from these ladies. I am really looking forward to hearing what they have to say. But talking about first times, there is always a first time for everything, and I'm a first timer. This is the very first week, 2 weeks of my role as a patient governor, and it's the first time I've worn this little identity. So yeah, I'm Maureen Haldane. I was elected as a trust governor just a few weeks ago, and this is my very, very first task, and I'm very privileged to be listening to these good ladies here. It's not the only first. This is the first in-person lecture that we've had since COVID-19. So again, I feel privileged to do that. It's lovely to see people face to face instead of on a screen. And this is the first Medicine for Members lecture that's presented by the CUH Arts team. So it's a first all round for all of us. I'm duty bound to talk about CUH Trust Membership Programme and its benefits. I'm going to read it because I'm a novice and I can't do it without reading it. So Trust Membership is free and open to anyone who's 16 years or over. I think most of you here are over 16. Well done. It's open to carers, patients, members of the public. They can become members. CUH very much needs and welcomes members' opinions to help us improve our hospitals. I think that's probably the most important point. There are offerings if you wish to become a member. Actually, I can't remember why I became a member. I looked at the points here, and there was one that really hit home, and I'm going to say that one first, and it's to do with listening sessions. And it's not you listening to us or our groups, it's the hospital listening to members, and that is the most important thing to me. The most important. Less important but useful, NHS discounts. I didn't know what that meant today until I went to buy a birthday card for my husband. It's his birthday tomorrow. About 2 minutes after I was wearing this. And I was told, oh, that's 15% off. I said, sorry, why? And so I ended up getting a discount. So I now know what that means. There are also Medicine for Members lectures, very different. I've looked at that they cover a vast array of topics and all really very interesting. And there's also various other experiences across the campus, and they are too numerous to find out what they are. It's useful to look on the website. The website is very straightforward. Even I can remember it. And for websites, that's pretty good. So it's definitely, I'm still making sure, it's cuh.nhs.uk. And if, like me, that will go in one ear, straight out the other ear, Namu over here will very much make sure that there are little cards available with that information on when leaving. Okay. I really, really have genuinely great pleasure in introducing our speakers for tonight. They are amazing people. I've read quite a lot about them. My interests in my career have been music, dance, and writing, as well as communications. I'm just going to be one of the audience, and I probably will be the one who keeps putting my hands up asking questions. But Rosie on the left here is the interim head of arts at CUH. Akua here is the arts producer at CUH. And Philippa here is a dance artist who's involved in the Dance for Health project at CUH. She's also involved in one at the museum. What you do in a museum with dance, maybe we'll find out eventually. But yeah, so those are our three speakers tonight. The lecture is being recorded. You need to know that the lecture is being recorded, but the audience members won't be filmed. There'll be an opportunity for questions at the end of the presentation. And it's literally just a hands up, and the speakers will actually answer your questions, hopefully very satisfactorily, which I'm sure they will. So your questions, even though you won't be filmed, your questions and answers will be recorded. So that's important information. At this point, I really don't feel that I have anything else to say other than let's look forward to what our presenters are going to present us with. So I think Rosie's going to go first, who will... Thank you.
Thanks, Maureen.
Okay,
was
I'm going.
Was that your water?
That's yours.
Oh, that's mine. Okay,
I kept them separate, yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you to Namu and the Medicine for Members team for inviting us here today, and thank you all so much for making it out. It's a real privilege to come and tell you about our work at CUH Arts. I'm Rosie, as Maureen said, I'm Interim Head of Arts here at CUH. I've been here for 3 years as an arts programme manager before that, but my background is in the visual arts, and I spent much of my time connecting people and arts projects together. So my career started at the Tate, where I was working in the interpretation teams and the family programming, before I moved back to Cambridge, where I run the learning programme at Kettle's Yard Gallery, which is a small gallery part of the university. And we went through a capital redevelopment project, and I was there for that before I joined here at CUH. Some of you will, the more observant of you, will have noticed that I've been doing some subliminal messaging to you during Maureen's introduction. This is an artwork by an artist, Bob and Roberta Smith, who makes these kind of art-based slogans, which are absolutely perfect for introducing presentations like this. So thank you very much, Bob and Roberta Smith. But I think it says a lot for what we're going to be talking about tonight, which is the arts in healthcare and how we use the arts at CUH. And myself and Akua and Philippa will be talking about the various different aspects of the things that we do. So some of you, when you received the invitation, might have been surprised to learn that there even was an arts team at CUH, and that even arts in hospitals is a thing that happens. There has been a curator of the arts of some description at Addenbrooke's for 25 years now. For a lot of that time, it was to do with the art on the walls, but various different projects that came from different cultural partners across the city. And Philippa's fantastic Dance for Health programme has been with us now for 10 years as part of that. But it's really only in the last 4 or 5 years that we can say that we've begun to extend that programme into different areas of practice and different places across the hospital, and really to start to explore all the different ways that arts can work for Cambridge University hospitals. And I say that because it's beyond Addenbrooke's. We go out to the different satellite sites that CUH is home to. A Cambridge Dialysis Unit, Ely Day Surgery, then Hinchingbrook, for example. And basically, I'm going to just say it in basics so we all know what we're talking about. Basically, CUH Arts is there to bring art and artists into our hospitals for the benefit of patients, visitors and staff. That's our basic ambition. I think it's nice to just spell it out. Sometimes it's difficult to understand. For those of you who are new to the area of creative health, you will be reassured to know that we're not alone in this. Arts in hospitals, or creative health as it is known across the sort of broader sector of healthcare, is a growing field. We now have networks and conferences, and in 2017 an all-party parliamentary group got together to review the case for creative health in our healthcare services. And that was followed up in 2023 with a policy review, making recommendations to policymakers about how it can be integrated into NHS services. There's also, alongside that, a growing body of research, of course, talking about exploring how the arts can improve outcomes for patients. It can improve patient experience routes and understanding of their treatment, for example, and whether that's looking at the positive neurological effects of playing music in ICU units, for example, or a child describing that they're experiencing less discomfort from a procedure whilst they're engaging in an interactive art in their clinical space. And we can't go into all of that in a 15-minute slot, but it's important to know for Cambridge University Hospitals, we're Safe, Kind, Excellent, that as a team that aspires to excellence, we're a very forward-looking team, and we're always reaching out to understand the best practice, new research, and incorporate that into the work that we do in Cambridge. Next slide. So, CUH, shaping care through creativity. I'm very happy to see that some of my colleagues have forward thought that we're going to need our banners explaining what we are. Normally we're in green t-shirts across the hospital with shaping care through creativity on our back. Who are we? We're a team of 6 people, filling 5 roles. Myself, I'm a job share with my colleague Ellen Novak. And while our work is fundamentally, the majority of it is funded by Addenbrookes Charitable Trust, it's important for us that we're actually employees of the hospital. Why is that important? Because often when I speak to colleagues across the sector who might work for their charities, there's always a disconnect between the understanding of what's happening in the hospital. But being employed by the trust, we're able to receive the communications. We have a relationship with the directorate, with the chief execs, with different clinical teams, and they're able to tell us what's happening, what the strategy is, what the priorities are, what the challenges are in their area, and we can try and find artistic ways to engage with those challenges. We have 3 missions. It's always good to have missions. Am I blocking my... No, I'm fine. Our 3 aims as a team are to inspire hope. And we want to bring those kind of positive, motivating aspects of engaging with the arts to our patients. Those really hopeful, inspiring things. We want to promote well-being. By that we mean we want to create opportunities for people to get involved in things that we know and the NHS tells us is good for our mental health and our well-being. For example, learning something new or getting together as a group. So we're wanting to create those conditions for well-being. And also we're wanting to humanise health. And what do we mean by that? A caveat across all of this is not the arts team saying that we don't think that the healthcare system as it is inhuman or something like that. There's so much care and humanity that happens in every smile and touch of the hand and the 1,000 clinical interactions that happen in this hospital every single day. It's a place bursting with love and care and kindness. But we are a tool in the box of that. The arts can play a really important role in connecting with people. And how do we use art? Sort of I don't know if any of you would consider yourself to be artists. I know there are some people here who have an artistic practice and use their art for personal gain. But a lot of people have the perception that art needs to be Beethoven in the Royal Albert Hall, or Damien Hirst at the Tate Modern, or something grand like that, when actually art in its essence is a really simple and humble act. It is somebody or a group of people creating something, expressing themselves with the hope of connecting with somebody else. Very simple. And if we take that forward, we use art all the time, even if you think you're not doing it, the film that you might watch or the book you might read before bedtime that just transports you to another place in time. Or, I mean, to choose a maudlin suggestion, when we're choosing music or poetry for a funeral, for example, we use art, we reach out to art to try and encapsulate things that are too hard for us. Sometimes things are too hard, too complicated, too internal, or too painful to express rationally or verbally ourselves, and we use art in those moments. And that's one of the reasons why people say things like art is good for the soul, or it feeds the spirit, because often that's where art gets to. When it's really important, it hits us somewhere deep inside. And when you think about what's happening for patients in hospitals and the list of kind of negative words associated with ill health and stays in hospital around pain and discomfort and boredom and isolation, if there was one group of people who were in need of some food for the soul or a lifting of the spirits, it's patients in hospitals. And if you think about it like that, then why wouldn't you have the arts here, is my soapbox moment. I'll step down from my soapbox now and get on with the body of the speech. So how do we do it at CUH? What are we actually presenting to patients here in the hospitals? We have three main strands of activity. The first kind of most prominent, largest area of our work is in live and participatory work. That's where we're actually bringing artists into the hospital and doing stuff. And within that, we have several programs. We have CUH Sounds, which is a music program where we bring, we have a partnership with Britain Symphonia, who are a local orchestra, and also a charity called Music in Hospitals and Care. And we bring musicians in, they play on the wards, anywhere from the concourses through to ICU, connecting with people, really lifting the environment, lifting the space with this beautiful world-class music. And it's interesting, I'll make the point now, that this is different from arts therapies. So you might have heard of the music therapies or art therapy or drama therapy. And while we know that arts in hospitals has therapeutic benefits, music therapists are clinical practitioners who work to clinical goals using those arts and psychology combined. For us, it's about those kind of communal moments sometimes, about bringing people together and connecting them outside of perhaps their immediate illness. We have CUH Creates. So you have a few examples here of us bringing more kind of hands-on activities into the hospital, allowing patients and staff to enjoy the practice of art through the actual practice of doing it, which is a really important physicality to it. And through that, we're also bringing people together. We often work in small groups on the ward and invite people into conversations about where they're going in their mind's eye when they're exploring through art. And in the same time, we're working on fine motor skills. So win-win. And then we have our Dance for Health programme. We've got Philippa up there in the photograph at the top left. Dance for Health has been running for 10 years. It's a programme that is really embedded into a number of wards on the hospital. This is not, Philippa will say more about it, but it's not performance This isn't Philippa going in and dancing for people. It's this really beautiful exchange that happens when Philippa goes to a patient's bedside and invites them to move in a way that feels good for them. And I won't embarrass her by saying, but she does this incredible thing where she might reflect or mirror their movement, and suddenly there's a call and response and a growth of movement, and then suddenly the whole ward are like floating with wings outstretched. It's really very powerful and beautiful, wonderful practice that we have here. We also work through patient environment projects, what the strand of work we call collections and commissions. So we do have art across the hospital, some of it in better condition than others. I think we can all agree on that, and we're working our way through that collection to neaten it up and tidy it up and use it more. So that people can find their way around the hospital and really see through all the fog of A4 pieces of paper stuck to the walls, make a bit of space for some of those artworks so people can spend some time with them. But we have a new strand of work working very closely with Capital and Estates on patient environment improvements. So when we have a refurbishment or a new part of the hospital, we're actually commissioned to bring artists in and create bespoke artwork for that space, finding distinctiveness within particular areas, really responding to the needs of the patients. We do a lot of consultation there. We've got some examples here. This is U Block, which is the new wards that have been opened. Up in the top, this is the movement hub, where we based the artwork on the ideas. The movement hub is this incredible space where you go in, you have your operation, you come round and you have your physio, and then you come out. It's very one-stop shop. And through the artwork, we've got this motif of these wildflowers sort of moving through the space with colours and shapes gradiating and turning with them as we travel through the space. And we've just done a paediatric X-ray room, and my favourite thing about it is a lovely sort of find animals kind of motif, but we also produce some stickers because everyone loves stickers, and then when the kids come out they've had their X-ray and they get their sticker, and it's another way of sort of being proud of how they've experienced that. I didn't bring any stickers, I'm so sorry. I'll send you one in the post. And then finally we have our creative engagement strand, which has really come out of the work that we're doing with major projects. So you would have seen in the corridor before, we've got the stands for the new Children's Hospital and the new Cancer Research Hospital. And the arts have been working with the major projects teams, not only to develop how arts will run in those new hospitals, but actually to use the arts to create a space for conversations about what people need from those hospitals, like you were saying, these listening sessions. And the arts is very successful in creating an environment where people's doing something quite unusual, and in the doing, they are actually exploring and vocalising what it is that they feel and they need. And that we can feed up the chain to the designers of the hospital. We've also been quite successful in using the arts to reach new voices and new audiences, diverse voices, so that more people can have their voices heard in those sessions. That's the end of my slot. I will now pass on to my wonderful colleague, Akua, who will talk about our work with staff.
Excellent.
Thanks.
Oh. Oh, thank you very much, Rosie, and thank you, Namu and Maureen, as well, for your earlier introduction. So my name is Akua Obangfrimpong, and I'm an arts producer for CUH Arts. I've been in post almost a year, so I started September last year. And my background has been in producing of theatre. I ran a children's theatre company for 10 years. We toured the UK with shows for children and young people. I produced film, primarily short film content, but also films by artists. and I have a background in producing arts events. I used to work for an online company called Zealous, who platformed artists through their website, but we hosted festivals as well to showcase their work. And then more recently, before I came to work here at CUH, I was an arts development officer for Cambridge City Council, and I used a lot of my my experience delivering other types of art forms to support artists and organisations in funding and planning guidance. So now I'm here at CUH Arts, and my responsibility is with the live and participatory programme. I think you saw a picture of me earlier in one of the teal t-shirts. So you'll quite often see me on the wards with people carrying instruments or with an artist carrying creative supplies, visiting patients in wards, working in small groups with groups of patients, and also with staff as well. And that's what I'm going to talk with you a little bit about. So one of my main projects is about workforce creative health. When we go to work, we don't only just work for the money. We want to feel fulfilled and have a sense of purpose. But also we need to recognise that in the NHS environment, a lot of the staff are working in very difficult, challenging, traumatic situations. And that's a lot of challenge to hold within yourself. So the Workplace Creative Health Programme is an opportunity to encourage staff to think differently about their time at work. And so through that, we have a number of different goals in terms of delivering for our staff at CUH. Of course, they're supporting staff wellbeing through the creative activity itself. We are members of the Staff Wellbeing Steering Group at CUH, which gives us the opportunity to be informed about the issues that are coming up for CUH staff on a regular basis. And we can use that to inform our thinking about our programming. We want to be able to enable staff to access the creative offer that's in Cambridge. So we have a programme which is still getting off the ground, but it's called CUH Arts Pass. And that allows staff to access events free or at a discount in the city. This month, we're going to Kettle's Yard for the summer opening of Megan Rooney's exhibition. And we will also go to the opening night of the Folk Festival as well at Cherry Hinton. And the purpose of those opportunities are not just about, oh, here's a discount, you go to that event, but it's also about creating community or sense of community by connecting with colleagues who have a shared interest too. Then we've got opportunities for the staff to contribute to the look of our environments, our new buildings. So there's been a lot of consultation work that has included members of staff for their opinions about, how the Children's Hospital should look and function, how the Cancer Research Hospital should feel on people's entry into that. And there will be more of that ongoing conversation. And then finally, and I think most importantly, is about acknowledging the experience of staff by hearing their stories. And that's where the creative practice is of great benefit, because it acts as a tool to be able to convey, as Rosie said, some of those more challenging experiences where words fail you, music or creative, other forms of creative expression can help. And also it helps to reflect back to people what they might not otherwise say. So for instance, we had a wonderful collaboration with an organization called Sound Voice, who created 100 Voices, which was a sound installation that we presented at the ATC back in November. Yeah, November. So much has happened. And it was a wooden yurt-like space that sort of held you as the visitor, as you listened to the voices of patients, of staff, expressing in their opinion, what it's like to have a voice in the hospital environment. And all of that was underscored by pieces of music that were inspired by the notion of a patient, a manager, a porter, and I think there was another archetypal character that came out of this as well. Essentially, we look for opportunities to collaborate with other organizations, experts or people, highly regarded in their field, to be able to come into the hospital and engage staff in a creative way, inspiring them to share what matters to them. Going forward, there we go. Well, this slide sort of talks about some of the other ways in which we deliver our activity for staff at CUH. But essentially going forward, we plan to make more regular the opportunities for staff to take time for creative practice. We're doing something called workforce R&D, in which we're collaborating with CUH's workforce team towards embedding some of the CUH Arts philosophy into the workforce strategy going forward. And then as part of that, we'll continue to see more of the things that we're already delivering, but we'll also be able to look at co-producing with staff further opportunities. Things that will continue to allow them the opportunity to have time for themselves, but to be inspired by a broad range of creative inspirations. So I'll just quickly sum up things that are happening now, and then I'll be quiet. So currently we work with the workforce team on a lot of workforce events, things like the summer fiesta. So we had a big barbecue last Wednesday and 3,500 staff came out for burgers at lunchtime. Whilst they were there, we had Time Machine Disco, who were encouraging people to dance, and we had a stall giving away our creative resources, and also talking with staff about their perspective on creativity and the importance of creativity at work. And then we are involved in awareness days, so and also celebration days. As you can see this photo from the Diwali celebration last year, we provide pop-up activities to engage staff at these events. And then we have programming specifically for staff. So in the autumn, we will deliver a 6-week program of creative writing. We had a series of creative writing sessions at the beginning of this year, which we have followed up with a resource. So we're quite conscious that we have a staff of almost 14,000 people. A workshop for 20 people is really nice for them, but we'd like to be able to reach more. So we created a printed resource which has some of the prompts from those sessions so that people can access that beyond that group. But like I say, we'll have more sessions in the autumn. And then with Dance for Health, through Philippa, we're able to reach the staff community. And we're now delivering brief sessions of movement to music for teams of staff who approach us to book their slots for re-energizing or team bonding or relaxation. And that's proving very successful. And we hope that at some point we might be able to budget for more time for Philippa to reach out to our remote and satellite sites as well. So I think I've covered most of the workforce activity. So I'm now going to hand over to Philippa.
Thank you. Gosh, where to come in now after such a thorough, beautiful, inspiring introduction? I'm going to scratch my head for a bit. This is what I do when I arrive on a ward. No, it's not. I'm Philippa Pereira-Stubbs, and I'm a dance artist, and I've been working in dance and health for 33 years now. I like to say over 30 years, but that could be anything. About 33 years. And back in the day when I began, the arts and the health was not a thing. There was no alliance. You got funding for health or you got funding for the arts. Dementia was still considered a mental health illness. So it's come along such a long way, and it's been an absolute pleasure to find ways of bringing this practice into spaces that just have not been receiving it at all. I work in the museums as well, but I'll tell you about that later, Maureen. And I also work as a creative practitioner with different creative groups, and I have run community groups, Dance for Dementia primarily, and just beginning a new pilot project with Parkinson's and the museums and the Junction. Now here's the thing, what is dance? That's the million-dollar question. And when I first came here, one of the senior physiotherapists said to me, what is this pill called dance? And if you've got a pill called dance, how many times do you take it? You know, do you take it once a day, twice a week, 3 times a month? What's it all about? And I think a lot of the work here at CUH hospitals has been about shaping, understanding, listening to patients, listening to staff, collaborating with this expanding and really experienced arts team to understand where does dance fit into acute, busy, pressured, intense, traumatic, a lot of stuff going on wards. I've never been interested in performing. I've always enjoyed getting people dancing. Essentially, when it began, we began on G6. G6 is Department of Medicine for the Elderly. It's the ward that has responsibility for people with dementia, people with Parkinson's. And it was really important, we began as a group, it's really important that the dance work began as something that the staff could understand and join in with, because if I got 10p for everybody who said, well, I can't dance, I'd be so rich right now. I'd be setting up a studio in the middle of all these hospitals, new and growing. But dance is about the body. It's a holy trinity. It's the body, it's the brain, it's the mind. And now with neuroscience, we understand so much more about what the brain can do and how it can regenerate and how it can engage. We understand the importance of the imagination, metaphor, language, music, creative writing, everything that's being set up here. But it all comes through the body. It's received through the body, it's expressed through the body. If you're making a picture, you're doing it through the body. If you're receiving medicine, you're receiving it through the body. Somebody's grabbing you, puncturing you. Somebody else might be changing you, lifting you, doing something different. So my role was to come in, understand what was going on, and begin to devise movement sessions, movement and music sessions, because of course I have music. I realized quite early on that dance was going to be terrifying for people. Oh, those are nice images. Oh, that's beautiful. And to find ways of getting people to find the movement that made them comfortable. Find the ways of moving that created a sense of joy. Finding music that gave them stories to share, memories to remember, relationships to build. So the communication happens through the body, through the music. And these were integrated sessions where the staff would join in, where family members would join in. And they were large and they were beautiful and they were very, very powerful, as Rosie says, because when you listen to people and find ways of making them comfortable, when we all listen to one another, We all have somebody in our past who listened to us well and made us feel valued, made us feel important. When you can establish that quite quickly, where people are just in beds, not communicating with their neighbours, slightly terrified by some of the staff. The staff are slightly saddened, hugely saddened by the fact that they don't have time to build relationships with their patients. When you create a space that is safeguarded and there's enough time to begin to unfurl, emerge out of your anxiety, your pain, your depression, your sense of isolation, total fear because you've lost control of your lives. You've become a number. You've become somebody who, if you protest just a little bit too much, you become difficult. If you're weeping, that's okay, tolerated for a bit, but then after a while, come on, pull yourself together. So there's a range. There's also people who are hugely engaged, hugely interested in the medicine that they're being given, absolutely present with the staff. So it's bringing that whole group together and finding music that inspires, relaxes. We sit in chairs, we stay in beds, and we begin to find ways of just becoming comfortable and engaged and listening to our bodies. After that, it's just letting the music build, letting the movement build. We go into duets. We do massage. Sometimes we're waltzing down the rooms up there. Sometimes we are just, as Rosie really beautifully depicted, mirroring, reflecting, showing people through my body what they're actually doing. Bottom line, I don't teach dance steps. I do know how to waltz. So I am able to every so often go in and do a waltz. I do have a lot of dance in my toolbox, but I'm there to bring my listening hands to people's bodies, especially with the very elderly, some of whom, they've been bereaved for over 10 years. They haven't been touched. They haven't been hugged. They haven't been... The touch in their life isn't tender, shall we say. So just these moments where you can go in. Over here on the right, you've got Catherine Pride, the extraordinary dementia champion, who works alone through the vast hospital network to train people around dementia and to show people how they can engage in a much more caring, careful, humane. The word was said so often, I need to be careful not to keep going, because of course we're all humane. But in these creative moments, we have a little bit more time to just stay in that sphere. So, pandemic came. All groups were stopped. Families were kept out. We only had the staff who absolutely had to be there. And the nature of the Dance for Health programme changed. Since then, we've been working much more one-to-one with people in bays, inside rooms, and that's been incredibly exciting because it means all the people who didn't get to the group sessions now get to visit from me. And that means I can go into people's rooms and I can work with them much more intimately and develop whatever it is they need right there and right then. So I work across Lewin, stroke, rehabilitation, acute neuro rehabilitation, the Department of Medicine for the elderly wards, diabetes, endocrinology, oncology for children, and then the other children's ward on D2, C2 and D2. And I'm saying this because what I'm trying to point out is that dance works for absolutely everybody. It works for the patients, it works for the staff, it works for the family. So we get that a lot, people coming in and saying, I can't draw, I can't sing, I can't make music. Actually, with the right creative practitioners, with the right listening, everybody can join in. And exactly as Rosie and Akua have pointed out, it restores agency. It restores a sense that you're important. It builds relationships in these very, very intense settings. It allows people to communicate with each other. Oh, I didn't know you were from Cambridge. Oh, I didn't know you used to do the salsa. I had once, amazingly, a group two ladies said, oh, we went to the same school, da 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 da. This other gentleman was brought in blind. They went, oh, it's Peter. He was the tap dancing champion back in the day. Peter's blind, very, very shaky on his legs, but he starts to tap dance because they recognized him as the tap dancer. He became the tap dancer gently. And then we had to sit down after 5 minutes, of course. But he was back to the vital essence of himself. So, yeah, all of these people tell amazing stories. I'm going to stop there so that you've got plenty of time to just digest a little bit and think about what questions you might want to ask us. Is that a good place to stop, Rosie?
It's
And the
wonderful.
I think so.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Good.
Thank you.
Maureen.
Wonderful.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
It says it all there. We do have time now. Before we do, though, I have to say, I feel totally inspired. I feel as though I should be dancing and singing and maybe do a little bit more movement in what we're doing at the moment. But if you have any questions, please, now is the time to ask. Deborah.
How do you feel that the arts team actually enriches person-centred care instead of a system-based approach?
Rosie? Yeah?
Yeah. I suppose we work, we are part of the system and we engage in the system to make the work happen. But when the work happens, it often happens in very small groups and responding to the individual in that moment. The artists that we bring in are very experienced in doing that. They are not, we don't bring in artists who are going to defiantly create an artwork, irrespective of what's happening around them. They co-create and they listen and they respond, and we try and be accessible and inclusive in that practice as well, to make the arts available to everybody as we find them in the moment. So often we talk about meeting patients as they are and working to build something very flexibly, very responsibly to how they are in the day.
It's essentially entirely person-based, centred, yeah. Because it really is about listening to what that person needs in the moment and integrating it. And one thing I didn't mention is that, of course, sorry, should have said, over the 10 years being allowed to work for this length of time, I'm working with the physiotherapy teams, I'm working with the OT teams, I'm coming in and getting a referral or somebody saying, oh, somebody over there really needs some help with this part of the body and they're really depressed and anxious about moving, or in the children's wards there's huge issues around fear of pain. So it's absolutely taking the notes, listening, meeting the person, what do they need? We all pull the tools out and then make that begin to happen for them. Yeah, absolutely person-centred. Yeah.
And I think often it illustrates how it can be done to the wider system. So you're showcasing, you're exemplifying that nature of care.
Thank you. Okay, are there any other questions? Lady.
I'm really inspired by it. Just give it a go. Be confident. Any kind of movement counts. Express yourself. Don't be embarrassed. It's all about the well-being of the person. I like research from Professor Chinnery. The neurology I find absolutely fascinating. In the much that whatever state you're in today, a simple movement, a touch, a happy memory trigger, you can be in a different place. You might just hear the first note of your favourite song, or a joke, or something that triggers you into a different place. It's absolutely amazing, and it's such a resource that it should be used more. I like the holistic therapies. There's a place for every type of therapy, that the whole person approach.
And what we've really seen is how, as the CUH introduced the programme now for staff, so they can book 15, 20 minutes. And that's not very long, and we go to their spaces. Sometimes they're hardly bigger than a cupboard, but they would always welcome us in and apologise immediately for not having enough time, not having enough space. And then we just say, well, let's just begin. Let's sit. Let's listen to something together. And 15 minutes later, the energy is completely different. There is, whatever it is, shouts of jubilation, rock and roll, or tears, but something has shifted. And that's there in everybody all the time, every day. And ideally, it could become a practice where that would be the norm for all staff to receive some time. But that's complex, and we'll get there. We'll get there. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
I was really touched by what you said about your role in comforting people who are low and depressed. And I'm sure you're right, the arts are a way to explore that feeling of sadness in a safe place. I was wondering, you were talking about other departments coming to you, and the lady who just spoke talked about a holistic approach. Are you ever approached about being involved in palliative care or end of life?
Oh, yes. So we did a brief pilot at Maggie Centre. And then we ran out of funding for that and had to continue back on the wards. But absolutely, yes, yeah. And I think we have to recognise there's a multiplicity of things going on. Nobody just comes in with a broken ankle. Somebody comes in and they've been bereaved, you know, they've got a heart condition and a broken ankle and maybe the beginnings of cognitive impairment, maybe the beginnings of some kind of a tumour. It's so, medicine is very complex now, and it's not just there to fix things. It's much more about an engagement, and a lot of the work that I do, I'm constantly feeding information about this extraordinary thing we have, the body. Did you know that if you move your elbow, then your rib's going to move? And did you know that your heart's just tucked under there? Did you know your lungs go all the way from underneath your clavicles to right beneath your ribs? People are just blown away. And you tell them that and they go, what you mean, if I sit forward like this and do that, I can breathe better? Yep, and you just did it. I was told you couldn't move your arms. Duh! And they're off like a bird, you know. And it's the use of metaphor as well, and that poetic sense of transcending. Yeah.
Thank you, Philippa. Yeah, I'm dying to ask a question as well, but yes, please do.
I'm convinced, and I was a governor myself a while ago, and was actually seconded to the arts team.
Oh.
So I'm one of the conversion, you might say. But the thing that's bothering me now is, you said team of 6. I don't know what all of you do all day, sort of thing. But 6 people trying to service thousands of patients in a building set up like this is nowhere, is it? And assuming you've got at least some of the senior management and senior medical practitioners convinced of the need of this, how long is it going to take to get a meaningful quantity of service delivery? I hope I'm not being too sort of...
I ask myself all the time, how long? I think one thing we heard at a conference we were at recently is that change only happens at the speed of trust. And I think we go forth into different environments, we convince a bunch of people, we gather a bit more steam. Voices supporting our work is always really important. It's quite difficult to capture this work and to talk about it. Often it's very vulnerable in the moment. You can't get a photographer in there and snap that picture. Often the people fall asleep after they've experienced some Dance for Health and can't fill out the thing. So sort of building that body is a slow process. You're right, we've got really fantastic support from our executives and things are tight within the NHS. We're incredibly lucky to receive support from Addenbrooke's Charitable Trust. And it's my hope that as the arts as a sector becomes more attuned and interested in the work that happens in hospitals, that other funding streams will become available to us, where we can go out to the Arts Council and we can, you know, CUH Arts as a national portfolio organisation, imagine. And because sometimes we do feel like a drop in the ocean, but we find ways to magnify everything that we do and to try and reach as many people, and we continue the work.
This is the longest running dance programme in the UK. 10 years. So there is a few others here and there, but like continuously working across so many acute wards. So there is something about, you know, embedding it in the wards, and the staff really have to be behind it and understand it. It needs to be something they can make sense of, and they see the effect it has, and then it slowly grows and the funding comes through. Certainly,
yeah, absolutely. That's what I feel about the workforce programme.
Yeah.
Because if the staff can feel the benefit for themselves, they can advocate for that to the patients and visitors, and also help us strengthen that argument for more support. Yeah.
Thank you. Please, may I ask a question and be one of the audience,
You have that
because
right as
I am
chair.
just dying to ask this. It's kind of a two-part question, but one is related to what the gentleman has just said. How do you reach out to volunteers to help boost the numbers? Are you doing that?
We've had conversations. It's really important to us, especially when you're growing a service, that it understands what it's trying to do, really understands what it's trying to do. So working with us, we're a team of arts professionals who've been doing this for a long time, and sometimes that's the sort of skill of creating these spaces is one that you need practice with. So we're at the moment, it's us and it's the artists that we work with and bring in. We work with the volunteers to share the resources that we've created, and of course it would be wonderful if we can build a volunteer team who, as well as, you know, we have had examples in the past of volunteers coming in and helping alongside our programmes, but they really have to understand the work, and that will just take time.
Okay. Thank you. My other question, I think, will have to wait for an individual question afterwards. It is more to do with poetry and telling staff stories. I am very, very keen to know how you deal with poetry and creative. It wouldn't be creative writing, it would be storytelling. But that's I've been doing it for a very long time and I am dying to get involved. So that would be my question. Quickly.
I'd just like to say thank you very much indeed. It's been terrific. And to answer the gentleman's question in a way, there was one at one point, and Natalie has grown the team very quickly compared to a lot of other hospitals. So although it's a small team, it's quite a big win, if I could put that in.
Yeah.
I think the volunteers one's a really good one, and I think probably people in this room who have a lot of experience over many years would love to help out. But we have to be interviewed many times, I think. A couple of things. One, I think you've got to make it very clear to audiences like this the differences and the parallel development of music therapies, arts therapies, dance therapies, alongside the work you've showed us tonight, because people get really muddled about that. So that's just one thing that I would encourage you to do. Two, I think with the new Cancer Research Hospital, there should be a line of research going alongside the arts programmes. You've won awards and all the rest of it. And I think there should be, ACT or whoever should put in a research line, whatever you call it, because the stuff that's coming out of this be shared across hospitals, across the UK and abroad, and your conferences that are building up, that's a new thing that's really building. So I would encourage a research line. And in the new cancer hospital, there'll be individual rooms. So you were saying you can do one-to-one, but also we're looking to have some sort of space where those isolated people can come together. And the arts is really a brilliant way of doing that. So I hope you're working with the council. But I've got about 25 other questions. But not
We just don't have the time, but thank you so much. That's really helpful.
Can I just
Thank
mention
you.
a few things? Thank you all again for all your incredible questions and for engaging. If you are in the hospital over the coming months, we have an exhibition called Conversations in Movement, which talks about the 10 years of the Dance for Health programme. Again, thank you to Adam Brooks Charitable Trust, who fund so much of our work. And if you've ever given to the Hospital Trust, thank you as well. And here are our contact details. We are online. If you want to share any more of this feedback, if you have any more comments, please reach out to us. We're always happy to talk. You might have got that impression from the fact that we're running late.
And I'm not timekeeping very well, but thank you, Rosie. Thank you. I just want now to say a very, very big thank you to you people for listening and for participating. So thank you for that. I need to let you know that a recording of this evening's session will be available on the CUH website, that it'll be shared in the membership newsletter, and it'll be shared in the staff bulletin. I did start by saying that these people are remarkable people. I think you'll agree with me that they really, truly are. And I would like to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'd like to do a dance for you, Filippo, but it would not be appropriate at this point. So thank you very, very much, ladies. Thank you. And I want to just leave you with one little thought. After listening to them, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go home and sing like nobody's listening, and I'm going to dance like nobody's watching. So enjoy your evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.